Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Guided Podcast. And we're back again this week with Catherine Ann, our resident intuitive astrologer who incorporates her background in tarot, channeling, and the healing arts in her uniquely guided approach to reading the messages in the stars. So she is here to shed light on the upcoming new moon in Virgo on September 2nd. And Catherine tells me that we're going to move through this episode a little bit differently than we normally do, which is what I love about working with spirit is there's no formula to how these go month after month. So, Catherine, I'm just going to let you get right to it.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. So we are looking at a new moon in Virgo. And as we've talked about in the past, the new moon is really a seed planting time. But the new moon in Virgo is a little different because it's at the end of the summer. It's a harvesting time in general, Virgo season. And so while it is a seed planting time, it is a new beginning. It's not really a new beginning from scratch. It's more of so we've harvested, and now what? Now what new beginning are we going from there? And so it's interesting to me because it kind of sounds a little bit like a full moon in the sense of something's really come to light and where do we pivot? But it's not that energy either. It's not just shining a light and pivoting. It's okay, I've really reaped some rewards from the summer season. I've they're showing me I've harvested all my zucchini, and now what? What am I going to do with all of this? And so it's the planting the new seed of the now what. That is it's a little bit different this new moon in Virgo. And very interestingly, different from our full moon in Aquarius that we had a couple weeks ago that was so busy and so much energy. The new moon in Virgo, excuse me, is a simpler energy. Hallelujah. Right? Because we've had a lot over the last few months. And so we're basically being given this opportunity to breathe, to look back at what's gone on for the past few months with an eye of discernment. So Virgo is very associated with the word discernment. Virgos have an amazing ability to understand the details, to be very analytical, to figure out where they want to focus. And so this new moon in Virgo embraces all of those qualities. So, where do we want to go now that we've had a lot going on in the past months? So, the only thing that I really want to add into this, as far as any other aspects that we're going to talk about, is that we do have this hard aspect between Mars and Neptune. And so, while we are looking at where do we go from here and focusing, filtering out what's important and getting a little bit more of a narrow focus, because with Jupiter and Gemini, we are overloaded with ideas, constant ideas. And this is going to be happening for the next, the whole time that Jupiter is in Gemini, it's about a year, bombarded with new ideas, new things we want to do, new things we want to learn, new things we want to teach. It's a lot of need for discernment because not everything is meant to come into form, right? So in that airy Gemini energy, Jupiter is just going for it. And this Virgo time is going to say, okay, yeah, those lots of great ideas. I love all your ideas. So let's focus. What do we really want to put some energy on? Where do we want to take all of those ideas and bring them down to earth? That's what this new moon in Virgo time is about. So that's where it's like, it's not a totally fresh out of the box seed planting. It's we've had all of this stuff. Okay, now where are we going to focus? And let's start that beginning. So this aspect with Mars square Neptune does give a little bit of a feeling of futility. Like, what's the point? Which is very opposite than the Virgo energy of like, let's figure this out, let's focus, right? So there is a little bit of tug of war of that energy because we have this, the phrase that, one of the resources that I use quite often is The Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. My astrology teacher is turned me on to this source. And one of the phrases for Mars square Neptune is toxic malaise. So it's like, everything's blah. I don't really want to. That is not the Virgo energy. Virgo is like, okay, come on, let's do this. Let's figure this out. Let's get it done, put everything in its boxes. So there's a little bit of tug of war with that idea. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because it brings me to the bigger topic of conversation that I wanted to talk about, which stems from the tarot card associated with this Virgo new moon. So the new moon is at 11 degrees Virgo. That is considered the second decan. There's 3 decans that take up the 30 degrees. So we're in the second decan of Virgo, and each decan is associated with the tarot card. So the tarot card that is associated with Virgo 2, or the second decan of Virgo, is the 9 of Pentacles. So if you're familiar with tarot, the 9 of Pentacles has this very majestic, regal, independent woman with in her garden. She's holding her falcon. She's very accomplished. I often, when I do tarot, think of her as the independent woman, the strong, like almost like the CEO, like I've made it. I'm financially successful. I have all my ducks in a row. I did it on my own. I am a strong, capable woman. This is the feeling of the 9 of Pentacles. That's what that image is. But there's another side to that 9 of Pentacles that I feel like is relevant to this new moon in Virgo. And that's about the idea of at all costs. I did it on my own. Didn't need anyone's help. I did it just right because I am perfect. And so Virgo in its lower vibration can speak to perfectionism. So yes, in that higher vibration is discernment and attention to detail. But in its lower vibration, it's the peanut gallery that nitpicks. And why can't I do it right? And I can't let something come out to the light unless it's just so. And so that area where perfectionism is toxic. And with this Mars and Neptune aspect, I feel like there's the potential where we could go, I'm not even going to bother because it's not perfect. And what I really wanted to speak to today is, where does our perfectionism get in the way of us taking the next step? Because with Virgo new moon, we're trying to plant the new beginning, a next step, a now what? And is our own self-judgment, our criticism, our peanut gallery going to say, never mind?
So I want to share a story with you that Spirit is flashing me to, because I feel like I am just developing my own awareness around how self-sabotaging this pattern really is. And so maybe this example can help the listeners really understand what I believe you're articulating here. So obviously, right, perfectionism is so self-sabotaging because it's a standard we can never attain. Number one. I mean, what is perfect anyway? Like, according to who? Who decided what perfect is or isn't, right? So we're already setting ourselves up for feeling less than by creating some unreasonable or unrealistic standard. Now, for our listeners, I don't know if I have shared this or not, but I am working on creating my own Oracle deck. And I love to write. So it wasn't unusual to receive this hit from Spirit about creating the deck because, I like to teach. And of course, I would be happy to write a book and, channel that information. Where it got me was, oh, you're also going to paint the cards for the deck. Now, I am not an artist. I cannot draw to save myself. But I was at a networking event and I met someone there who is an art teacher. She's about my age and we hit it off. And she was really excited to help me bring this project to life. Now, I thought I was going to commission her to do all the artwork because I love her style and I love her artwork. And she said, no, I am going to empower you to bring your own creation to life. And I figured, okay, that is actually what spirit would probably have me do. And they brought me the perfect person, the perfect teacher to help me with this project. Now, we are 8 or 9 cards, into this project. And I had no idea how aligning and fun it is for me to actually paint because I was so in my head about I can't draw and how are we going to do this? I wasn't even wanting to step forward with this, number one, because I felt like it was going to be way too hard to even bring this vision to life. But in collaboration, in partnership, like she just helps me make it all better. But this past 2 weeks, we've been working on something, a drawing, a design that's a little bit more ambitious. And on this particular card, there were some like really fine details that need to go in to really bring the card to life. And I felt like I was wrecking it with every stroke. And then I was giving it to my teacher, being like, I need you to fix this. Please help me. Right. And sure enough, she did. She could make it better every time. However, what I noticed was how I was getting in my own way. I was getting in my head and I was like, I can't do this. This doesn't look good. I don't like this. And then I was all disappointed because I was really excited about what this card is. By the way, the card is all about being yourself. No irony here, right? And so I'm diving into this card and I'm realizing how all of my thoughts are stemming from this pressure of needing to be perfect, needing this card to be perfect, needing the deck to be perfect, that I'm literally ruining my experience in the moment of just having fun and creating. And by the time I came home, I was in a bad mood, which is I'm never in a bad mood when I'm done with this because I feel passionate and it's fun to create in this way. But when we apply these pressures within ourselves, this self-criticism, this internal perfectionism, we wreck our experience. And so when I got home, I actually had to process my emotions. I sat down and I talked with spirit about what the wound was around this. And for me, the wound was around my perfectionism, but it was also about the fact that I am putting so much of myself into creating this oracle deck. And yet it's about enjoying the journey. It's about allowing myself to be who I am in the expression of this creation. And the message they gave me was, you're not meant to be an art teacher. That's her job. You're just meant to be you. So stop being perfect, trying to be perfect in comparison to your teacher who literally does this for a living. We're not asking you to become an art teacher, to become a master of drawing. We're just asking you to enjoy bringing to life this creation. But what I realized, and as you were talking, it's like perfectionism ruins our experience. And when we're so accustomed to being perfectionistic, people know the experience that I'm talking about. They know how their energy is drained. And that's what prevents us from moving forward and doing anything because we're like, well, if I can't get it perfect, I'm not even going to start. But it's really about staying connected to what lights us up, what feels fun to create, and can we take charge and take responsibility of our mind, of the monkey mind, and keep ourselves out of that perfectionism, out of the self-criticism, those lower vibrations that you're speaking to really enjoy the journey. And what does that open us up to in terms of what we would move forward with if we weren't so worried about how it was going to be perceived, judged, rejected, fill in the blank?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story. Because it actually flows really nicely, even with this idea of the tarot card and the decans, because The next card after the Nine of Pentacles is the Ten of Pentacles, where you're surrounded by loved ones and family and partnership. And one of the things I think that this is really speaking to, especially in your story, is you were not meant to do that all alone. You were not meant to be the sole accountable person for this to manifest, right? You needed to be in partnership with somebody to get it to where you wanted it to go. Doesn't take away in any bit what you've done. And so pulling that that idea of perfectionism also can lead us to think that it's all on our shoulders. And it's not all on our shoulders. We have, not only do we have spirit to partner with, but we actually have other humans to partner with. And that's part of this experience. And so I think, though, that's one of the things that's very interesting about pulling in the Virgo aspect of that is to discern what is valuable redirection or filtering, and what is that monkey mind that's criticizing. That's the important piece that we need to figure out, because there is value to trimming and to modifying and to, I'm getting the image of like a sculptor that's pulling away so that the piece of art can appear, right? So you do need to trim and refine. Virgo is amazing at that. And that is what this new moon is asking us to do, is to trim and refine and clear all the chaos of all of the things we're thinking of, to focus on this. What do we want to create now? And know that it's not all on us. We can move into partnership to manifest whatever it is we want to manifest. Another element that I just love the fact that you told a story about art is that we have Venus in Libra. Venus is the ruler of Libra. Think Venus, Aphrodite, love, beauty, harmony, balance. So Venus is super happy in Libra. And the South Node is right there with Venus. So the South Node is, among other things, an area where we need to let go. It's an area of release. And so where I really felt this was coming into alignment, not only with your story, but also just in general with this idea of perfectionism, is what do we need to let go of that we have told ourselves, but this is the ideal of beauty. This is my ideal harmony. This is my ideal balance. But something around that needs to be let go of so that it actually can come into harmony and balance.
I so resonate with that. I'm somebody, I have so many ideas, and I'm sure you can too. Like when you're an entrepreneur, right? It usually, there is no shortage of ideas, but you can almost get bogged down, like you're saying, with so many ideas. And then it becomes this question of, well, how do we do the trimming? How do we narrow down? And I often think this is where we trip ourselves up, because we use our mind to make the decision based off of, oh, well, if I do this, then maybe X, Y, or Z will happen, whether that's this will generate revenue, or this will, create some sort of partnership that I'm looking for, right? There's like sort of a give to get. But if we really are trying to figure out, to your point, how do we partner with spirit to really discern what we are being guided towards? It feels like two pieces. One is, what is truly a heart-based desire? So when I'm looking for the heart-based desire, I'm like, if time, money, resources were not a factor, what would I want to be doing, right? If none of that mattered, what would I really want to be doing with my time? That gets me back into my heart. Like, what does my heart really want to do? How may I serve is also another question that I ask myself that might get me into that heart space. But the other piece is, our feelings are showing us the way, right? And so if we are thinking of moving forward with an idea and we feel tight and tense and constricted, right? That's more what a no feels like in the body. But if we feel open and expanded and free and relaxed, that's more what a yes feels like in our body for people who are trying to discern the difference. Now, sometimes we might feel more yes, maybe with a little hesitation or a reservation, and it might just be like it's actually a yes, but we're afraid of the rejection. We're afraid of the criticism. And so that's the piece that we really have to, I think, discern. Like, what is that little bit of discomfort that we might be feeling in our body that's overwhelmingly a yes, but there's like this little piece that feels like a no that we need to sift through and trim away so we can be all in on whatever we want to create.
Absolutely. I think that this is a beautiful time for us to really take a moment to process all the stuff, right? We talked about, I think, I believe it was in the Leo new moon podcast about how the universe sets us up beautifully, right? We like these transformation and change, and everything's being set up for us to make progress. And so now we're at this time to just reflect on, like you said, what really lights me up. I love that you use the word service because Virgo very much is a sign of service. And so, not only how can I be of service to the greater collective, but how am I of service to myself and to my community, just in service in general? What is going to serve me, us, everything moving forward? And letting go of any of those voices that want to say, it sounds really hard. Forget it. I don't have the energy. Because you do have the energy if it lights you up, if it sparks your heart, that'll all unfold as long as we don't allow our peanut gallery to tell us we can't have it or we can't do it because we're not perfect.
Yeah. I'm learning more and more how our thoughts really do drain us of important life force energy. I mean, even in writing my book, right? This is a heart-based desire to put this book out into the world, and because I'm very conscious of my own energy and what fuels me versus what drains me, recently, even in writing, I've noticed that I feel drained at the end of my writing sessions. And so the piece of discernment that I've had to really look into is, am I drained because my writing is not in the right direction? Or am I feeling drained because I'm not supposed to write the book? And where I believe self sabotage comes into play for me is when something's not easy, I'm like, ugh, too much effort, right? And I am not a patient person. That is not one of my virtues. So patience with a creative process is also not my favorite part, right? And so many projects I have going on really require patience with the creative process. And so that's the other thing that I think people really need to dive into is really looking, not just taking the emotion, because we need to understand our emotions, but really looking into, well, why am I drained by that? It might not be because it's the wrong decision or the wrong choice, but maybe we are being pushed in a different direction towards a new way of doing something or a new way of bringing the creation to life. Or maybe we're being asked to control our negative thoughts or that monkey mind, or maybe we're being asked to look at how our own self-sabotaging behavior is what's actually draining the energy for something that is truly a heart-based desire that we're being called to bring into the world. And I think so often that's the piece of this journey that can be so confusing, and why discernment is such an important word and question that we need to ask ourselves in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm thinking also about the letting go of something that is um what you think your perfect expression is, right? And so in your case with the writing, is the feeling drained because of pushing yourself to some ideal that's not actually the metric, it's maybe a sense of perfection of what you think it should look like versus where it really maybe needs to land, and letting go a little bit on that. Um, I think we're in this time looking a lot at, um, I know you and I have talked a lot about this idea of useful worry. Is this useful or is this not, right? And I think that that phrase can be used in many places, right? Is this useful criticism, discernment, critique, or is this um toxic? Is this, blame, shame? And that's the dance that I feel like we're in with this energy, with the Virgo new moon, is um knowing how to tease that out, and refine, and kind of like set anew, with maybe I want to say like a reduced level of judgment, or a just a cleaner, like appropriate judgment, as
Yeah.
opposed to toxic judgment.
Right. I think the thing that I keep flashing to as we're having this conversation is if we look back at the astrology and the evolution astrologically of the last few months and all the new and full moons, it's like we've been stepping into this energy around becoming more fully who we are at our core, releasing all of these identities and these parts of ourselves and these conditions and these rules and these programs that aren't serving us anymore. And in the most recent full moon, right, feeling a lot of pressure to refine, make adjustments around, right, stepping more fully into who we are. And now it's like, okay, now we're at a place of harvesting a little bit. And now that we're at this place of harvesting, right? It's almost like harvesting from this place of a new becoming, right? It's like this rebirth energy, the way I feel into it, of we're stepping forward as this new version of ourselves. And sometimes that tug of war we feel is almost between like these old thoughts and these old programs that are so ingrained in our thinking, and this feeling within us of I'm not that person anymore. And so, the phrase I keep hearing from spirit is like, can you just give yourself permission to be who you are at your core? And if you are an artist that makes stick figures, more power to you. That is who you are. And that is perfectly okay, right? And it's just our judgment of what an artist should be, or our judgment, right? And so that's, I think it's just our judgment of what is that creates the problem. If we are to just accept, right, who we are and allow our natural expression to emerge, and we let go of these rules and expectations that we place on ourselves, we also will probably unlock a lot more energy to fuel us forward.
I love that. And it's just so synonymous with perfectionism, right? All that judgment is what is the petri dish for the perfectionism, because we're judging every little aspect of it. And in the higher vibration of Virgo, we're going to judge that in a discerning, positive, useful way. So it's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not saying we can't refine, but in a way that is productive instead of destructive.
I think that makes sense. And I would say, too, for anybody who struggles with perfectionism, I do think there's an important piece to look at in terms of what is your perfectionism covering up, right? Is it covering up low self-esteem and low self-worth? Is it covering up, like feelings of not being good enough? I mean, I think they all kind of spiral to, a certain theme within all of us. But the reality is perfectionism is a defense mechanism. It's something that we utilized to keep ourselves safe because somewhere along the line, we were told that what we did or how we showed up wasn't good enough. And those messages come from internal family systems. Those messages come from the macrocosm, right? From media and all sorts of places. But I think if you're someone that struggles with perfectionism, not to mention how you're astrologically programmed on top of it, right? I think that's something that we all just have to look at. It's kind of a trauma response, whether that's big T or little t for trauma, but it's a way we try to keep ourselves safe, but it's also a way we totally block ourselves from stepping into the things that are really going to give us great satisfaction and fulfillment.
Mhm. We've spent the last year or so with the South Node going through Libra, the North Node in Aries. Aries is about the me. What do I want? How do I want to be free and independent? And Libra is about interacting with others. It's the partnership, it's the harmony, it's the we. And so it's been this balance between me and we. And what you were saying just really made me think about a lot of us who were told however we were behaving wasn't appropriate, or the different ways we've learned to interact in our life with others, and the codependent patterns that have developed over that. And I feel like there's a little bit of looking at how to release the codependency as well. I think it's not for nothing that the narcissism codependency topic has been so loud over the last year and a half. It's very appropriate for this astrological, North Node, South Node time. But, where do we need to let go of those codependent habits that we've behaved in a certain way to be liked, to be accepted, to feel like we won't be left alone and out in the cold for being ourselves? I think that's also a little bit of what this, releasing with that South Node on Venus and in Libra is releasing that idea of, how do I have to be perfect? In
Yeah. And the
order to
fear of
be
rejection, right? Like Virgo, isn't that part of Virgo? Like this like fear of rejection. And I think we all can relate to it's a basic human need, this desire to belong. So I
Mhm.
think anybody can relate to a potential fear of rejection. But yeah, perfectionism would also be a defense mechanism or self-protection mechanism so that we don't feel rejected or like we're going to be abandoned by being who we are.
Right. And so, like you mentioned, that we had talked about in the previous full moon and the new moon, there's all this energy towards let's be who we are. Let's be uniquely who we are. And now we're in this place of, okay, but if I'm uniquely who I am, what do I have to let go of that I used to believe was a way I had to behave? Or I used to believe that's what uh the ideal harmony looked like, right? Because that ideal harmony maybe didn't actually mean you being you. It meant keeping the peace, which is not what we're looking for.
Correct.
And so I think that we're just in a time of um I just got this image of sweeping up the pieces, like cleaning you know, clearing the debris of whatever we've moved through over the past few months.
Like the dustpan, like sweeping up the little pieces that are left over.
Yeah. And being like, yeah, I don't need to let this linger around anymore. I can clean this up. Virgos like to clean, right? They want it all tidy. We're going to clean this all up. We're going to clear out all the debris. We're going to start fresh with this new expression of who I really am, as opposed to maybe who I was being to in the name of not making waves.
Yeah, in hand analysis terms, we always call it like the approval, the appreciation, and applause, the three A's: approval, appreciation, and applause. And so, what are the things that we do for approval, appreciation, and applause? And those things are usually a function of feeling like we need to keep ourselves safe. And so doing things that are out of alignment with our true value system because we're trying to get these things in return so that we can feel safe. But I think, anytime we're dealing with any of these fears that are triggered, we're called to go inward. We're called to find that sense of safety within ourselves and be really clear within ourselves about how we need to move forward and how we want to move forward. And it's not about not feeling fear as we're moving forward. It's about holding ourselves through the fear as we take those steps.
Yeah, beautiful. I also want to point out that it's just as you said, feeling that safety within ourselves. And that doesn't necessarily mean doing it alone. Because coming back to that Nine of Pentacles that Virgo, second deck in Virgo points to, is I did it all on my own, which is also a defense mechanism, right? And so we are being asked to let go of whatever needs to be let go so we can be in partnership with others and still be ourselves. It's like I'm me within the we, and that's safe.
Amazing. So, if you had to kind of just sum up all of the themes of this moon, what would you leave people with as the primary takeaways?
I think the primary takeaway is discernment is a beautiful thing when we are being positive and useful in clearing away the clutter and getting focused. And be mindful that that doesn't mean perfectionism. I think that's really, it's about discernment is valuable. Overly critical perfectionism is not.
Huge difference. Discernment doesn't even have really judgment attached to it, honestly. So, I think that's something that people could hang on to. Like, am I judging this, or is this true? Right? Like, there's a big difference there. I also, Spirit keeps pointing to the difference between criticism and critique. Like, there's a big difference between those two words, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. And so it's about focusing in is a beautiful thing, especially with how busy all this energy has been over the past few months. And so very useful and valuable to be able to focus in and okay, we're going to start fresh on this area. That's lovely. Keeping the shame and blame and blah out of that story is the most important part of being able to capitalize on the energy we have for us right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing this conversation with us. If anyone listening to this podcast wants to connect with Catherine, all of her information is at Catherine Ann Energy, and it is included within the show notes. And we will look forward to hearing again from Catherine later this month. Bye for now.